I was laid off. Can you guess how much severance pay I received? I never expected this. Today, my boss called me in for a talk and said the company's performance was poor and they needed to lay me off. He fired me, citing my age and the distance I live from the office, which he said affected my work. At that moment, I cried. It was the first time I shed tears in front of others. Now that I'm unemployed, how will I manage the monthly mortgage of 3,000 yuan, the 400 yuan for utilities, my son's 2,000 yuan monthly college living expenses, the 500 yuan for my parents' support, and all my debts? These countless questions swirled in my mind, and I started crying uncontrollably. My boss said he knew I was in a tough spot, but the company had to cut costs and believed I would understand. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and reluctantly told him I accepted. The company didn't offer any severance pay, just an additional 20 days' wages. It's incredibly difficult for someone middle-aged to find a job after being laid off. How difficult is it for middle-aged women to find employment? Discrimination and restrictions against women in the Chinese workplace are becoming increasingly severe. For women aged 35 to 45, it's almost like hitting a career ceiling. During labor shortages, companies are even less likely to hire middle-aged women. If there are layoffs, middle-aged women are often the first group affected. For those in the IT industry, 35 is a significant age limit.
真的要活不下去了.
I really can't keep going. I just lost my job and finished the resignation process. After working at the company for 5 years as a head of an AI project, today was my last day. People say 2024 will be tough, with every company cutting staff, and ultimately, I couldn't escape unemployment. This morning, I went to work as usual, ordered takeout for lunch, and in the afternoon, the boss suddenly called a meeting to announce layoffs. Today, we discussed our next steps. 2 male colleagues, both 40, said it's hard to find work. I'm just over the 35-year mark, and another female colleague just got married and hasn't had kids yet. Each of us faces different challenges in job hunting. I thought about my fixed monthly expenses: mortgage, car loan, utilities, daily living costs, and credit card installments. My monthly expenses are over 25,000 yuan, not counting unexpected medical bills. Every day costs money, and without an income source, I feel anxious. The job market has been particularly harsh in the past 2 years. Over 1 million companies in Shenzhen have gone bankrupt. For those of us around 35, it feels like being stuck between a rock and a hard place. Being laid off feels like hitting rock bottom. Once I knew I was getting laid off, I started frantically sending out resumes, looking for work, but have yet to hear back. If I can't find a job soon, I don't know how long I can hold on. I didn't dare call my family when I found out, for fear of making them worry.
In recent years, with the collapse of the real estate market, the China-US trade war, crackdowns on private enterprises, and the withdrawal of foreign capital, many industries have entered a harsh winter, suffering severe losses and struggling to survive. Waves of company closures, layoffs, pay cuts, and unpaid wages have left many people in dire straits. I've had my salary cut from 8,000 yuan to 3,000 yuan, and my year-end bonus has been cancelled. Before leaving work, my boss called me in for a talk. Honestly, I had considered the possibility of a pay cut, but I never imagined it would be this much. The boss explained the current situation, citing the overall economic environment affecting the company's performance. He said the company's expenses are huge, and to survive these tough times, everyone needs to pull together. Once the situation improves, salaries would be adjusted back. If we couldn't accept it, we could look for opportunities elsewhere, though he didn't say it so bluntly. I was left a bit dazed and unsure of what to decide. The boss wants a response by the end of the month, which means by June 1st. I need to decide whether to accept the pay cut and stay or leave the company. Hearing this news, the first thing that came to my mind was my monthly expenses. What should I do? My son and I have been living frugally, keeping our living expenses under 1,000 yuan a month, but that's just for food and doesn't include utilities, phone bills, and other expenses. Plus, my son will start high school in the fall, and the tuition fees are substantial. With just 3,000 yuan, it might only cover our monthly expenses, leaving little room to save. If I decide to change jobs, I would face a period of unemployment. I can already feel the anxiety and fear of the unknown that comes with job hunting. Given the current economic climate, every industry seems to be struggling. Even if I find another job, there's no guarantee the salary will be better, and many companies are laying off employees. It's a tough decision to make, but one thing is certain, we'll need to tighten our belts moving forward.
兄弟们啊，最近裁员都裁疯了呀！
Recently, layoffs have been rampant. ByteDance is laying off employees to the point of having no one left to cut. ByteDance, the most profitable private company in China. And guess how many people Alibaba laid off from January to April? 14,000. That's almost the same number as the entire previous year. Now it's JD.com's turn. They've announced strict attendance checks and are even inspecting employees' phones. If they find anyone complaining online, they get fired immediately. It's a sign of turbulent times. Friends around me are either unemployed or have had their salaries cut. It's such a difficult period, and it makes one wonder what the future holds.
According to data released by China's Ministry of Finance on May 20th, the country's fiscal revenue fell by 2.7% year-on-year in the first 4 months of this year, following a 2.3% year-on-year decline in the first quarter. This indicates continued economic downturn. Guangdong, China's leading economic province, is also in decline. Regardless of income levels, both entrepreneurs and workers are feeling the pinch. Mr. Huang, who works in export power equipment in Guangdong province, says the years before the pandemic were his golden days. He bought a Tesla Model X, a house in Shenzhen's Nanshan district. Reflecting on his business now, he says it has never been worse. Due to weak sales and an uncertain future, manufacturers are reluctant to lock in long-term contracts. Mr. Huang mentions that 2023 has been tougher for local businesses than the early years of the pandemic. He knows many people who are trapped in debt, struggling to pay high mortgages, with some even losing their homes to foreclosure. His company has already laid off 5 workers, and he jokes about living off his wife's income. As the economic leader of Guangdong, Shenzhen has seen a wave of business closures. Dozens of companies have already gone bankrupt or are teetering on the edge this year. Mr. Zhang, a factory worker in Shenzhen, told the media, "There are fewer factories now. We often see this factory closing and that one moving away. More people are losing their jobs and fewer migrants are coming here. The economic situation is definitely bad, and many people ask me to help them find work. Our factory constantly talks about layoffs. We're all on edge, fearing for our jobs. How can we even think about helping others find work?" Shenzhen resident Mr. Lin also shared, "Apart from state-owned enterprises and central enterprises, business is extremely difficult. There are widespread store closures, businesses going bankrupt, spaces for rent, and suspended operations. I travel a lot across the country, and it's the same everywhere." Mr. Lin added that salary cuts, layoffs, and unpaid wages are now common in enterprises and institutions. Even graduates from top-tier universities have very high unemployment rates. It's even tougher for graduates from the other 90% of universities. There's no short-term recovery in sight. It's now a consensus that people need to be prepared for tough times and get used to it. Every industry is highly competitive. China's major economic provinces face difficulties, and poorer provinces struggle even more. For example, local governments in Henan are deep in debt, and even public institutions delay or refuse to pay employees. Mr. Yuan, a teacher at a university in Henan, said, "My salary has been delayed for several months, sometimes 3 or 4 months. There's no money, no benefits. We're slightly better off since our university has a business, producing and selling canned fruits while teaching students. The workers are university students, professors, and lecturers, all doing internships and training here. The students and professors work for free." Mr. Yuan continued, "Livelihoods are very tight now. I'm responsible for teaching and running this business. I haven't left work yet. The government has no money, so we have to be self-sufficient." The civil servant sector also feels the impact, realizing that the proverbial iron ice bowl is no longer guaranteed. Mr. Zhang, a civil servant in Baoding City, Hebei Province, revealed that since January this year, the city has been delaying civil servant salaries. Mr. Zhang said, "In March, my salary was delayed by 10 days. The salary for April still hasn't been paid, and today is already May 21st. My salary has been reduced by 10%, which is 400 to 500 yuan less, greatly affecting our daily life. My wife is a middle school teacher in the city, and her salary has also been cut by several hundred yuan and delayed. The economic situation in the counties is even worse. We are in the city, but my friends in the counties tell me they haven't been paid for 3 months." Another civil servant, also named Mr. Zhang from Wuwei, Gansu Province, said that benefits for civil servants have been widely cancelled. except for departments like the Tax Bureau, Finance Bureau, National Security Bureau, and Public Security Bureau. In Baiyin City, Gansu Province, the government has started to reclaim previously issued benefits, forcing employees to give back the benefits they had previously received. It's possible that the same policies will be enacted in Wu Wei. In fact, salary cuts and delays for civil servants have become common across many regions, increasing the financial pressure on already strained households. A mainland netizen posted on Weibo, "Just started paying off the mortgage, and now they say there will be pay cuts. Life is tough." Another post that was popular reads, "The current situation is that labor is cheap, the market is sluggish, and with unemployment, pay cuts, and layoffs, most people's incomes are already low, and now they are further reduced. On top of that, prices are skyrocketing." According to data from the recruitment platform Zhaopin, in 2023, nearly one-third of office workers saw a decrease in their salaries, affecting industries from real estate to technology and finance. These sectors have been hit by the Chinese government's efforts to curb excessive behaviors. Media analysis points out that the reason for the pay cuts lies in the collapse of the real estate market, which has prevented the government from obtaining large revenues from land sales. 2 years after the collapse of China's real estate market, the resulting financial crisis is approaching a critical point. A decade ago, working in a bank was considered a golden rice bowl, but in the past 2 years, the salaries of employees at 13 major banks have shrunk significantly, with joint stock banks suffering the most, seeing pay cuts of up to 40%. China Merchants Bank has even declared the need for austerity measures. In the banking industry, which has unique performance-based compensation policies, China Merchants Bank and Bohai Bank have been clawing back pay from employees, averaging about 50,000 yuan per employee. According to Chinese media, a customer manager received her salary in mid-May. After deducting basic salary, performance pay, pension, medical, work injury, unemployment, maternity insurance, and housing funds, she was left with less than 1,000 yuan. Last month, she had just over 2,000 yuan. She used to take a taxi to work, but now has to use public transportation. However, Zhao Jia has chosen to stay in the financial industry, believing that even if salaries might decrease further, it is still a stable and respectable job. Most people don't quit because doing anything else would still be tough. Since last year, bank pay cuts have been widely discussed, with the topic bank salary cuts garnering nearly 1 million views online. Some netizens lamented experiencing 2 rounds of pay cuts, reducing their average monthly salary from 8,000 yuan to 4,000 yuan. Faced with continuous salary cuts, some bank employees have chosen to leave. Last year, Yao Yao joined an Eastern commercial bank through campus recruitment and became a small and micro customer manager. As a new employee, she found it difficult to issue loans. During her 9 months on the job, her monthly salary was around 2,000 yuan. In April this year, she resigned from the bank. Additionally, several banks have been engaged in reverse salary recovery. By the end of March this year, at least 7 listed banks had disclosed that they were clawing back last year's performance pay, collectively reclaiming about 32.8 million yuan. The trend of salary cuts is also evident in statements from various bank executives. Zhao Fei, chairman of Zhengzhou Bank, stated at the bank's performance briefing that Zhengzhou Bank requires senior executive salaries to be reduced by 10% for 2 years starting in 2024. As the wave of salary cuts of banking industry spreads, it has also affected brokerage employees, who are often considered the kings of wage earners. Brokerage firms have long occupied the top of the pay pyramid in China's financial industry. In recent years, large Chinese financial companies have implemented tightening measures, cutting salaries and bonuses, while also requiring employees not to wear expensive branded clothing and watches to work, as Beijing is pushing to narrow the wealth gap. Recently, the Securities Times analyzed the annual reports of 22 listed brokerages and found that 60% of the employees saw their average salaries decline in 2024. However, the decrease was slightly less severe compared to the 20 to 40% drop in 2022. Wave after wave of layoffs and unemployment reflect the precarious state of the Chinese economy. More and more analysts believe that China's economy has hit a dead end and cannot escape its predicament, posing a further threat to the Chinese Communist Party's rule. Despite Beijing hinting at the introduction of more stimulus measures and announcing that the 3rd plenary session will be held in July, these efforts are unlikely to change the overall situation. The challenges of demographic shifts and overcapacity are global issues that are difficult difficult to resolve. Taiwanese author and current affairs commentator Fan Zhou, who has been doing business in China for 20 years, compared the Chinese economy to a patient with multiple organ failure. He stated that the problems are interlinked and beyond remedy. Fan Zhou predicted that the Chinese economy would not survive beyond 2 years, suggesting that 2025 would be a critical point for the Chinese Communist Party. If the economy collapses, the central government's control over local governments would diminish, leading to a wave of displaced people. Many middle-class Chinese are already willing to spend tens of thousands of dollars to move to the United States. Those without the means to emigrate to Western countries might flood into Southeast Asia, Taiwan, and Japan, potentially creating a significant black swan event.